Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we've got most of our regulars, if not all of our really regulars, Brian and Drew and Lou and Oscar. Good to have you guys. On this podcast, we talk about how Taoist thought relates to our personal recovery. We try not to philosophize. We talk about our own experience of how, I can say for me, studying the Tao has and keeps helping to open that view of the higher power, cracking that door a little more. You know, at first it seemed like I was looking through a keyhole. I was the frog in the well, right? But now it's cracking just a little. The more I surrender, the more I approach all of this life from a place of powerlessness, a place of, I don't have this figured out. I am open to what others have to say, which I used to not be at all. I just waited on you to finish so I could say what I thought was right. And so many things. And this applies to life. It's not about becoming a Taoist. It's just another view of the higher power. I do want to talk about a resource from buddyc.org that's free to you. The one I'm continually mentioning every week for the time being because there's a transition going on is sobermeditations.org. If you use the Sober Meditations app, and there were more than 1,000 people, actually over 1,300 that were actively using the app, that app is shutting down. And in response to that, instead of building an app, all those meditations are available at sobermeditations.org. So please share. If you have friends that use the app, please let them know that one day the app is going to stop working. And when it does, and I think for some it's already started, depending on your device, when it does, they will only be accessible through sobermeditations.org. And they are a podcast as well. So you can Google in your aggregator Sober Meditations and access them all there like you would any podcast. So you can access them that way too. I hadn't thought to mention that. So they're out there on any aggregator. We also talk about a synchronistic moment every week. I've got a lot of feedback that people enjoy the synchronistic moment because one real benefit of the Tao and studying the Tao is awareness of what's going on around us. That's, as far as spirituality goes, I think that's one of the huge benefits is the awareness. So I start seeing when things are lining up beyond my control rather than always being the Mr. Magoo in my life and just things happening and me not realizing where they're coming from. So today, Lou, you have a moment for us?
I do, buddy. This one goes back, almost 40 years, I guess. 37 years, something like that. I was a divorced single dad with having joint custody of my son. I had him 3 days a week. And I also had two stepsons from the previous marriage that I was still close to. And I was dating this woman that had 4 kids. And I'd known her since we were 12, and we got reconnected. So we made our mistakes and those kinds of things. And I found myself falling in love with her. But I'm thinking, how's this going to work? 7 kids. And I was just kind of going back and forth in my own mind about it. And I said, well, I'll just put it out there to the universe and just be still and not be torturing my mind about it for a little while. I was driving over to pick up my son, lived about 70 miles away, and turned on the radio. Just after I thought that, I turned on the radio. The woman I was dating was Dixie. And I turned on the radio, and the song playing on the radio was Joan Baez singing "The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down." And I listened to that for a while, and then I thought, well, that's okay. That's a coincidence. And then I turned the channel again, and it was Alabama singing Dixieland Delight. Thought, okay, what's going on here? I turned the channel again, and it's the night they drove Old Dixie down, this time by the band. So that was felt like I was getting the answer to my question, and it turned out to be a pretty good answer because Dixie and I have been married for 35 years now.
That's a good one, Lou. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, we have this thing between the two of us when we don't know for sure, we just say, well, we'll just toss the balls in the air. When you got to take your own action on things. So we just toss them in the air and see where they land, see which way the wind blows them, and the universe decides to take them, and then we go from there.
You know, a lot of times, Lou, this is something, actually, this is synchronistic because I was just talking to Sponsy about this a little earlier. A lot of the transformation is in the things that we take action upon ourselves, like maybe our work. Let's say we've been doing a job for years and years. We know how to do the job, but how do we do that from a place of powerlessness? How do we, and that's what you're talking about, Lou, is how to, you still take action. I think that's the way. It's where we talk about the effortless effort. It's still effort, but if I can remove fear from my effort, then if fear's not there, and I'm moving from a base of compassion rather than fear, or just an openness to ideas that are not mine, just an openness in my, or an openness in my thinking to new ideas, even for, that I have. Because I can approach a lot of things I knew what to do. I'm going to do this and this and this, put my head down and push forward, not open to any suggestions, not open even to new ideas I would have, because I knew how to do this. So this is what I'm doing. Similar to what, you had some objections there. How is this relationship going to work? You didn't just say, well, that can't work, and push forward. You were open. And by you being open, there was some signals, things that arose to help point you in a direction, right?
Yeah, it's been such a blessing. it would have been nice to have one son, and I have one grandson now with that grown son, and that would be nice. That's fine. But instead, I've got 7 kids, and I've got 30 grand and great grandkids, and it's just a joy in my life. So that letting go and not trying to force the issue or put a time constraint on it or anything like that has just had such an enormous positive impact on my life that it's unbelievable to me.
It's those little changes that eventually change the direction of the ship.
Right.
And being open to those. If I wasn't open to making the shift, doesn't matter how hard I tried, I would still be going in the same direction, right? Huh.
Yeah, my instincts were, if anything, were to hunker down and to kind of hide out for a while and not take risk again and those kinds of things.
It's those fear actions, right? Yeah.
Right.
Man, the steps helped me with that. Steps 4 through 9 helped me identify my fears, how I was acting from that fear foundation rather than shifting to a compassion foundation, which is what 5 started showing me. Well, 4 and 5, writing down these things, started being able to identify fears. I was told that steps 4 and 5 correct my relationship with a higher power. They get this, a lot of people describe it this way, that gets this upward channel going, if you believe in that kind of a thing. And 8 and 9 get the horizontal going with other people. So it breaks down the differences and breaks down the walls and restrictions that we've placed through. And then 6 and 7 are the steps that I do all the time. That's how I change, is when I allow love to shine light on fear that has bound me, and I didn't even know I was bound. I heard it put by one lady that it was Alcoholism's the only jail cell that unlocks from the inside. Yeah. And same with everything else in our lives too. And that's fear. Fear, you could say fear is the jail cell that you unlock from the inside. You have the key the whole time. You can unlock the door, but you don't even know it. And how do I unlock it? I choose love over fear. I pray for you, or do things for you, or hope good things for you. If I resent you or have some kind of a disturbance, an aggravation with you, and what happens? It doesn't help them. It helps you. It frees you. It doesn't free them, because it's not about freeing them. It's about freeing you. Thank you, Lou.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move on to our story. I'll read the first paragraph and we'll talk about it. We're in the middle of the story, Great and Small. You know, we did the first podcast on this story last week. We're going to have our second meeting on the story today, and we may end up with a third. Who knows? The first part of the story, what I got out of this was it was focusing on similarities rather than differences. Now we're taking up where we left off. Thrones pass from dynasty to dynasty. Now in this way, now in that, he who forces his way to power against the grain is called tyrant and usurper. He who moves with the stream of events is called a wise statesman. Moves with the stream of events. Now, we know Chuang Tzu a lot of times is talking in governmental terms, but if we break that down to personal government, how it applies in our lives, which we try to do with everything, do we move with the stream rather than force our way? And that does relate to what we've already talked about. Do we move with, or are we forcing? That's a question that the Tao asks all the time. Am I standing on what's already moving? Am I just moving with? How much difference in effort does it take to force or move with? Any areas in life where I'm going against the grain, where I'm forcing, I need to sit with those areas. That would be areas of life where I have a disturbance. If I have a disturbance and I'm aggravated, lose my peace in any way, for me, there is some kind of push going on that doesn't need to be there. Oscar?
Yeah, thank you. You were talking about being in the prison of your mind, right? And locking from the inside, or unlocking from the inside. And for me, this moving with the stream of events instead of fighting everything was the key, actually. That was the key. And actually, it was more than even the key. It was the discovery that there is no key necessary. The door is just open. And it came in two ways. One with the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, with the acceptance is the solution to all things, to all my problems. And it came at the same time with a podcast I heard about Taoism. And the man said, he described his career through life. And it was born, and then you learn things, and you need to try, and you need to fight, and you start fighting as a kid, and you need to go for that, and school, and grades, and people, and there's always a goal somewhere where you need to reach, and then you will become happy, and you need to fight for it, and you need to have ambition, and at a certain point in his life, he discovered, oh wow, I don't have to do all this. I can just, and he described it in a metaphor of rowing a boat, that he was rowing upstream and really struggling against the river, and then discover, oh wait, I can just lay down these pedals inside the boat and relax and go with the stream. And I heard this, and in the same time I read this, or my sponsor told me about acceptance is the solution to all things. And it was really a kind of miracle that suddenly I saw, oh wow, I don't have to be in the jail of my mind. So that's what I wanted to share, that for me, really, I found a key. I found a key out of this mind, which was so troubling because of all the fears and ambitions and everything. The way out is by accepting everything exactly as it is. And then I learned slowly, and I'm still in this process, and I don't know if I'm good at it, but from acceptance, I can go to thankfulness, and from thankfulness, I can grow to love. And then when I'm love everything exactly as it is, I'm in perfect harmony. And when I'm in perfect harmony, I will not use any substances. And that's the main goal, right? But it's really, yeah, it's actually what you said. It's love instead of fear. And it starts with acceptance. At least in my case, it starts with acceptance. I can't turn fear into love without the process of accepting first. Thanks.
Thank you, Oscar. And this doesn't mean you lay down and do nothing or you let people run over you or all those things that we like to think of the extreme. Drew?
Yeah, I really had to practice some acceptance this week. My wife was unemployed for most of this year, and she finally got a job 2 months ago or so. And while she was unemployed, we got married less than a year ago, and we handled our finances separately for the 10 years we were together. And of course, while she was unemployed, I was helping her out with bills that she had, but not really asking, too many questions about it. Just, she'd ask if I could help out, and I would. And now she's been working for a couple of months and still needs help. So I finally told her, I want to look through everything. I have a really good mind for personal finance. I want to look at everything and see what we can do because, you're working, you still need help financially, like what's going on. She really didn't want to, but she did. We went to a coffee shop, kind of a neutral location, and it was way, way, way worse than I had even considered it could be. And I went into immediate acceptance mode and, okay, here's what it is. We've turned on the light in the room, and now we've seen how messy the room is, and now we can get to work cleaning it up. I looked into options and eventually decided to do a home equity loan on my house, pay everything off, so that interest isn't just building and building and building. It was just completely unsurmountable. And I got a really good rate, and I'm not bitter at her, resentful, or anything like that. I'm trying to show compassion for her and her situation because I know that she's embarrassed and she feels like a failure, and she's I'm this age and I have nothing to show for it, and all of that. My husband's having to bail me out. I know she feels bad about it. I'm trying to be there for her and show her love and compassion and support. And we talked about how we have to be open with each other about these things, and no more taking out personal loans at just insanely high interest rates and not telling the other person about it. So just I know that I would not have handled this nearly as well without being involved in both this group and being sober, having a clear mind about it. That's definitely a situation where being in the mind of acceptance, in the mind of compassion, in the mind of what's the best action, if any, to take right now, and not escaping from uncomfortable thoughts or feelings, letting them come, letting them go. I definitely did feel some little frustration, little resentment, but I didn't dwell on it. I didn't let those guide my thoughts or, words or actions, especially. Proud of how I handled the situation, and I know that we're both in a better place for it.
Thank you, Drew. That's a really good example of, if you're in acceptance, does not mean that you don't take action or even uncomfortable action, because you could have taken the same action from either a fear foundation or a love foundation, either one. You could take it from a fear foundation. If I were operating in that from fear, I would be angry. I would be very punishing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to teach them a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
How dare them? It's my job to teach you a lesson. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, being that you could more clearly see what was going on, probably what kept your resentment to a minimal was that you were there to help, not there to punish, if I'm hearing your story correctly.
Yeah, definitely. And we did talk about, lessons to be taken away from this, but definitely not in the, the tone of voice that you were implying, but just kind of mutual teaching and learning from our mistakes.
Not condescending.
Right.
Yes. That's a great example of what we're talking about. That's really more of moving with than against. You're taking the same action, but you could take the same action from either pushing against the grain to do or moving with. You were moving with, even though you were taking action, but it was an action with compassion. I think it was the with. You were showing compassion for her, not coming from a place of fear and punishment kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Drew. Brian.
I was just gonna say, I've been in a situation like that, and I really like what Drew said about going to a coffee shop, to a neutral place, and for me, my first thought would have been like, hell no, I'm not spending $10 more. We've already got X amount of problems. We're going to line this out right here, and that's, and man, that gets into that parental dynamic, and it never freaking ends well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the parent. So yeah. I've been there in that same situation, and it's difficult to come at that without fear and with acceptance. So good for you, man. Good for you. And then I appreciate Buddy's feedback on it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Brian. The first question to ask myself anytime I am disturbed, no matter what it is, if I am disturbed, I can go through life being at peace at all times, handle difficult situations, but from a place of peace rather than disturbance. Because we found that us getting disturbed does not help the situation. We still address the situation, but us coming from a place of anger, me getting angry and handling something never helps. First of all, I can't think clearly. Secondly, I'm creating situations that many times I need to make an amends for. So that question really is, for me, I'm getting disturbed. What am I afraid of? If I'm disturbed in any way, the first question I need to ask myself is, what am I afraid of? What fear is causing me to be disturbed? Because it's always fear behind disturbance and clouds my judgment on what actions to really take. Brian?
Yeah, I had that jogged my memory. You had mentioned, about teaching a lesson. And I can't tell you how many times, like, that's where I would go in my mind. I'm fixing to teach this person a lesson. And it never worked out. I mean, it was kind of like the damn Looney Tunes cartoons, with the I can't remember what it was. It Coyote. His plans never worked out, and that's where I was. And I would just double down and try harder to teach a lesson, and it just never freaking worked out.
That's go ahead.
Oh, just to say, not only did the Coyotes plan not work out, but he was always the one who got hurt.
Yeah. Maybe that was lessons I needed to learn.
Uh-huh.
Then here I am.
It's that kind of thing it's that kind of thing that brought me to 12 steps on the Al-Anon side, is trying to teach this alcoholic how to not to do that.
Yeah.
All kinds of different gyrations and dropping anvils and all kinds of things.
Lou, I heard of not picking up the rope. We got a new one, not put down the anvil.
Yeah, Brian, I call it not picking up the racket, not hitting that ball back over the table tennis or after the pickleball net.
Pickleball.
Just let it go.
Yeah, put down the paddle.
A friend of mine used to say, talking about pushing your buttons. He said, don't put your buttons out there where they can be pushed.
Right.
Damn it.
I had a work situation a number of years ago where I had a pretty significant disagreement with the level above me. What I felt that what they were doing was illegal and unethical, and they were doing it for political reasons. And I was in an acting position, and I had desired that to be in the real position, not acting, but really being the director of this thing. And I just couldn't do it. So I quit that job after 30 years. And I was resentful. As I was leading up to that, I was just really concerned and fearful about what was going to happen. And I finally actually retired on January 30th, not sure exactly what was going to happen. By February 1st, I had another job. And I worked for another, 15, 16 years after that, and a job I loved even more. And over the years, I still hung on to that resentment, but I let that go, and I'm grateful now that that's what happened. So much better. I was able to work across the country, was able to do all different kinds of things that I never would have had that opportunity to do in that last job. So coming to acceptance on that was hard. But when I look back over it, it was just a really good thing to have happened in my life.
It's hard to see those things you can't. I can't see them as they're happening.
Not in the moment, no, sir.
It's kind of interesting. In the moment, Lou, I think my life is bouncing all around. This is happening. This is happening. There's no connection between these things. But when I look backwards, I can see a straight line from one thing to the next. I think I do that with gratitude. I think gratitude does that for me.
The profession I was in, there isn't anybody that graduated from high school and said, "Oh, when I grow up, I'm going to be that." I don't know if there was. I'm sure there's people that happens to, but anybody I knew out of the hundreds and hundreds, right, thousands of people I knew in that profession, none of them set out as the goal to get into that profession. They stumbled into it, they wandered into it, made a decision here that led them in that direction. And it's like that for a lot of people. I think a lot of different things in their life, where they work, where they live, who they marry, all those kinds of things are not like on a 5-year strategic plan.
It's okay to make the plan, but we've got to be open to where the flow is going, right?
Yes, it's great to have a direction you're going in, but not be so rigid on the path to get to that direction, and open to other routes, even other endpoints.
There was a suggestion made to me, Lou, years ago in vocation to sit down with a legal pad and almost do like a mini 4-step writing down what you enjoy doing, what you feel you're finding, what you're quote called to do is kind of what you're talking about is one way of framing it. I had to get past what I thought would make me the most money or what, my mama told me I should do or, all those things back to what really I felt I should do and look in that direction. And that came just from Scotty M reminded me this morning, we were talking and he reminded me that this is about dropping things rather than adding things. Like, yeah, it really is. So can I drop all these preconceived ideas of this will make me happy or, this many zeros or whatever the case. And when I did that, I went all the way back to when I was probably 10 years old, 8 or 10. And I remember riding by, I can take you to the house today, riding by a house in the back of my mother's B210 red B210 station wagon with a luggage rack. And I saw a house that was vacant. And I said, somebody should take that house and fix it up. And from then on, if you asked me what I wanted to do, I didn't know what vocation I was going to have, but I also wanted to buy rental houses from the time I was that age. Because somebody asked me when I was doing so, I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do for a vocation, but I want to buy rental houses when I can. So that just, that looking back can really be helpful in those situations. I think we cover things up that we make and notice. Lou?
Yeah, and some people pay a lot of attention to what the experts say or what the books say or those kinds of things. Because of the things I was going into, I did a bunch of career tests and those sorts of things. And they always came out that I should be a Catholic priest. Well, I'm not Catholic, had no interest in celibacy. But that's what the experts said that my best career choice would be. So maybe going back to our childhood and going back to what our own values are and what our natural instincts are is a little better than that, what the experts say.
Hey, Lou, the one job they said that I would be good at was bank president. Bank president?
Yeah,
no,
well,
I don't think so.
That's a 2-step process, buddy. Get a job in a bank. Step 1, step 2, become the president. 2 steps.
Yes.
Simple.
Oh, yeah, very simple.
I've heard a phrase in recovery that I believe it's in the promises. It says, we'll be grateful for what has been given, what has been taken away, and what has been left behind.
Good, Brian.
We can look at that taken away as a negative, but a lot of times that's a positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I learned much more about what's taken away than what is given.
Yeah. I wasn't going to mention this, but I was kind of a silly little moment. So that the other day I had a customer that needed some help and they got a piece of equipment like mine. And long story short, I didn't want to go over there. I got some resentment against these folks. And, because I felt like they kind of cheated me. I haven't done much for them over the years. And anyway, so I went over and helped them and was talking to the guy in the shop. And we were just talking about how things had changed over the years. And he was talking about a guy that back in the early 90s had came in and started a business. And at that time, it was like if you started a business in this industry, you were getting just bought up, and they were just paying stupid money. And he was talking about this guy, and he said, man, he sold it and just, I don't even remember what he said, walked away with tons of money. And I was just like, yeah, I bet this guy's got the perfect life now, And then the next words that come out of his mouth was, he lost it all. And I was like, and he starts telling me how, this guy got mired in addiction and, the cliche, coke and hookers and all that crazy stuff. And then next thing you know, you got a wife that's soon to be your ex-wife that's like really pissed at you, and you got a war chest of money, and you know the rest. And I was like, damn it. Why'd you have to ruin it? But that's the truth. I know in my recovery, man, I've run across a lot of people that I thought had the perfect life, and they've been able to stay out of a lot of unmanageability because they have the resources too, and it's not a blessing. Just keeps things going.
I was listening to a podcast the other day by James Bean, Spiritual Awakening Radio. The way out is within. I'm like, yeah, it is. Those things, those outward things, Brian, never are going to, no matter what they are.
Yeah.
If we're deriving peace and joy from those things,
yeah,
it's fleeting.
Exactly.
It's fleeting. Not to say we can't have those things, but they just can't have us.
That's it. And there's still that part of Brian that's in there. And I had a guy in recovery tell me, and I can tell you, I was on the Hernando de Soto Bridge crossing the Mississippi River going to Arkansas. And he said, man, all this stuff is an inside job. And I thought, what in the hell is this guy talking about? That was literally what I was thinking.
Well, that's where the kingdom of heaven is.
Yeah.
It's interesting, too, that kingdom of heaven or kingdom of God, Drew, can be interpreted as the extent of God's rule. So that can translate to the third step. How much of my will and cares of life am I surrendering? What's the extent of surrender in my life?
It depends on how much peace you want. If you're going to come all the way in and sit all the way down, you got to let go of all of it.
Yeah. And we can do that even in the actions that we have personal abilities to do. We don't have to carry any of that. We can take the action and let go of. The huge thing for that is letting go of the outcomes, which I used to carry. That's the gift, because I took action in fear. I was fearful that something wasn't going to work that I did, and I'd worry and I'd stress, which did not help me to do well at whatever I was doing. And it hindered me. It hampered.
Those are the things we lose. We were talking earlier about what it is that we lose, what Brian was talking about.
What we compromise to keep, we're going to lose. That part too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brian?
I was just thinking, I said before, you go 5 or 10 or even 6 months down the road and you're like, thank God that didn't work out. You have those moments, those little reminders.
Guys, I'm glad we slowed down and just dug a little deeper into some personal stories with this. We'll take it up from there next week and have a part 3 on this story. Great and small. Any other comments before we close? Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.